Hail, viewers! Today, I would like to talk about a new subreddit that I have. Now, I have been doing the subreddit thing for a bit of a while. I suppose my first one was the Renoa is Artemisia subreddit. That is one pertaining to Final Fantasy VIII. And then there was the Legend of the Dragoons subreddit. Both of those subreddits have to do with video games. This subreddit is going to be somewhat different because it is pertaining to the religious subjects that I used to cover, primarily Christian things, symbolic things, and the like. This was a topic that I happened to review upon this channel for a good deal of time. And that changed when I noticed that my viewership was not so very good unless I engaged in matters that pertain to critiques and talking about other people and other things of that sort which were not so very, in my opinion, beneficial in an ultimate sense. So, I have decided to put some artistic flair into the spiritual type content that I create. And so I had come up with an idea to create poetry videos and homilies that are poetic in nature. This, I know, is very niche. And my channel, as I said in the last video, is a collection of niches and eccentricities, so to speak. Very pertinent for an eccentric individual such as myself. And I am very aware that this channel is itself one that doth not gain so much viewership and is not so very popular. And so, at this point in my YouTube journey, so to speak, I acknowledge that. And so I acknowledge the fact that these videos, in many cases, will not receive that many views. Although I do have a very stable subscriber base for the most part. I do try to make things very impartial, neutral in a sense, so that the videos are not so very jarring to people who may be, for example, here for a particular sort of video. For example, if you're interested in video games or the like. And I think really focusing on poems and poetry for this, for the religious side of the viewership base, is itself very, very to the point in a sense. And if anyone wanteth to learn some things having to do with these spiritual truths, so to speak, philosophical things, the love of wisdom, so to speak, in the original Greek definition, this will be relegated, or not necessarily relegated, but rather exemplified, amplified in poetry. And I did a video, I believe it was one day ago, that was a poem I composed called Eternal Scales. And I know this is very intellectual for this manner of discussion, but if I am to be realistically me, so to speak, genuine, I am not a person who minces words. I have to be who I am. And so who I am is a person who's going to speak in a very outspoken fashion, utilizing speech and language that is not so very popular or even known by some people. Some people are familiar, or rather are, for example, not familiar with early modern English, which I make a great deal of use of. I try to reduce my conjunctions to keep the flow in my speech. And so, many people, this may seem somewhat odd and it may not appeal to them. I understand that. Though I have to say that YouTube as a platform in general is not very reliable to receive viewership, especially for people who are trying to produce content that is very niche, very specialized, for very particular purposes. There was a time when I think that was not the case so very much. You could be a random person saying all manner of things and have a unique personality and people would be drawn to it. Nowadays, I think that is a bit less. Reddit hath allowed me to essentially gain a good deal of viewership. However, people are very unwilling to join mysterious communities that they know very little about, and that there are not already established members essentially already there. If they come to a new community, there's always the apprehension of joining any type of community, but people still do read. So that is one thing I've benefited from, is the increased viewership from the subreddits that I create for each niche that I cover upon the channel. And so at times, let me put it this way, I have noticed that for certain videos I have sort of held back on my language, on my flourishes grammatically and linguistically, but at this point I think I want to do a bit more of that, because in sooth, that is to say in truth is a word you should learn if you watch this channel. Sooth meaneth truth. Forsooth, in sooth, if you read Shakespeare, you will be very familiar with these terms that I like to use. Terms like peradventure, which meaneth perhaps. I also do like to use eth in replacement of s's in some cases in regard to certain verbs specifically. But anyhow, viewers, I would say the subreddits are things that I like, even though overtly they do not really create much of a significant difference. I have noticed by basing myself in a type of subreddit for these particular subjects that I have essentially been able to sort of create a basis for my discussions. So this subreddit is called Poetic Homilies. It is going to be a subreddit dedicated to poems and homilies. Each poem is going to have a conceptual basis behind it. These are going to be primarily Christian type of poems, though even if thou art not Christian, thou mayest gain a good deal of use from them, and you may learn my culture. And I think this is a very good way to portray as well as convey cultural things. And so for me, my culture is somewhat different than others. This is my personal culture as well as a sort of Christian culture broader in general, as well as quietistic, heretical you could say. If we are talking about Catholic Church and Protestant definition, I am, by all senses of the word, if we are to consider denominational standards, for the most part a heretic. In the style of Miguel de Molinos or Marguerite Perret, who was burnt at the stake, bless her soul. Anyhow, and bless yours as well, good viewers. If I say thou, that is a singular address, and I dare to say that I try not to address you, because I know I'm talking to more than one person. It's thou. But I guess if I do, you can just think of it as me sort of addressing you personally. I can do either one. Both would be grammatically cogent, I think. Eternal Scales is a homily I created. It is the first contribution to this project, to this experiment, so to speak. To this endeavor, rather. Because whether I call it an experiment or not, I am essentially doing this in earnest. And so, this is my first. I think it is very useful. The poems are to be used to benefit you, so you can use them and apply them. This is very practical spirituality, practical Christianity, in sooth. And I dare to say it is quite different than what most people do. These homilies are poetic in nature. They are to be implicit as well as explicit, I dare to say. Thou mayest gain something from them. I really think thou wilt. As I said, the link to this particular Reddit will be in the description or the comment section. And so, as you may see, not the cherry blossoms, goodness lord, what am I saying? Oh, excuse me. The red spider lilies they have a history in Japan. It was said the first missionaries there, many of them died. Many of them were persecuted by Iyasu's Tokugawa's government, as well as Hideyoshi Hashiba's or Hideyoshi Toyotomi's, because he did change his name, I do believe. And I dare to say that the story is those missionaries, as they carried the gospel to different peoples, they left behind a flower that they had essentially brought from India with them. It was a red spider lily, and they planted it as they went about and as they traveled. And this was to leave a path. Wherever the path ended, one would know that that is how far they had gotten. And if it ended, you essentially knew they died. It was a very interesting story and lineage that flower hath in regard to the Christian tradition in Japan. And for me, that and the history of Japanese Christians who died and were persecuted by those respective governments that were there in Japan. It's very important to me, and so I always have the red spider lily. To me, it is a greater symbol than the cross because it's a symbol of beauty. The cross was a Roman symbol of execution. The cross is also a symbol of fire. And so for me, I like the red spider lily as a symbol more so than the cross. I also like the sheep, and in particular the black sheep, because, of course, being an American citizen of the black social status, I think that the black lamb as a symbol, as an animal, more so representative of us. And I like it because some people have the experience of being a black sheep, so to speak, not necessarily accepted in the flock. And so this, as a subreddit, this is a channel, as a YouTube channel, I dare to say, it's a bit different. And so the black sheep is very pertinent as a community icon for this channel. I dare to say that the color scheme brown is very base, very meek, very humble, very human. And so it shows brown as a color here. I also shows the verdant green as the key color. And so this is all very intentional. It's all very intentional. I dare to say that I like the color scheme. I like what I have done with it. I hope those who come can enjoy it. If you want to join, you are most welcome to join the subreddit Poetic Homilies. And I would simply like to say, may you be blessed, and farewell, viewers. This is quite a joy.